The opinions expressed in the Brothers-in-Law show are for informational purposes only and are not a substitute for personal professional legal advice.
Thanks for tuning into Brothers-in-Law on Go Country 105. I'm Larry Mandel.
And I'm Rob Mandel.
And we've been trial attorneys here in Los Angeles for over 40 years.
On our show, we will discuss current events, talk about legal issues, and have some very entertaining guests stop by. So stay tuned every week for Brothers-in-Law right here on Go Country 105.
Welcome back to another episode of Brothers-in-Law. I'm Larry Mandel.
And I'm Rob Mandel.
Hey, Rob, we want to give a big thank you to Mortgage Mom for all her valuable information. We love following her.
We sure do. And before we welcome our guests today, we've been asking our listeners to call in, nominate someone who's going above and beyond during the coronavirus crisis. And we've got this tremendous response, right, Larry?
Oh, yeah.
Right. And producer Cam, you have a message for us that you're going to play from someone who's nominating someone in the community, right? So let's take a listen.
I'm calling to nominate Penny Limbright from Patriot and Pause. They are a fabulous organization that provides furniture and all sorts of resources for veterans. This woman works tirelessly for the community, for our veterans. And she really needs support and a shout out. She's fabulous. She's a one-woman dynamo. And I'm calling about Patriot and Pause.
All right.
Penny from Pause.
Penny from Patriot and Pause is on the line, right, Cam?
Yep, I have Penny from Patriot and Pause on the line.
Hey, Penny.
Hey, guys. How are you?
We're doing well. How you doing?
Good. Just taking care of our veterans.
There you go.
Right.
Thank you, Penny.
Well, we appreciate that. And so I guess it's even more challenging to do that during this coronavirus thing, right?
Well, we have not closed down at all. It's too important that those that provide us our freedom are able to have things in their home that give them hope and dignity, and especially being on lockdown. We can't let them be sitting in empty apartments with nothing. So we have not closed down during any of this time. We've continued to serve our veterans, active military, and reservists.
Wonderful.
And when you present Pause, that's talking about our dogs and dogs with our veterans. Is that right?
That's one of the things that we do. We focus on our provisions for Patriots program. The Pause part has changed a little bit because as of the first of the year, there's a new law that has gone into effect that a veteran can go to a county shelter and get an animal at no cost, and then we refer them to agencies to get them trained. So our focus has changed a little bit because of that new law.
All right. Well, we do want to thank you on the air and elsewise for doing what you do, especially during this challenging time. So what we're going to do is send you a whole bunch of certificates that you can use at a Ralph's grocery store. And Ralph's has helped us out with this as well. And you can hand those out to your veterans or buy the things directly for your veterans or do what you need to do with that. How's that sound?
That's awesome. We'll make sure they get into the hands of our veterans, active military, and reservists because they truly are in need at times where just basic things like food is important to them. So that will be a tremendous help, and we appreciate you guys and your willingness to do this.
Here you go, Penny. Thank you for what you do. And thank you to all our veterans, too.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Penny from Patriot and Pause, one of the outstanding citizens doing well in our community during this challenging time.
That's right. One of our heroes.
All right.
Hey, Rob.
So, Larry.
Yeah.
So today,
you do it, Rob. You have the honor of introducing our very special guest. Go for it.
Okay. Well, we do have a very special guest today. He's a fellow attorney. He's a good buddy of ours. His name is Jim DeSimone. He's been a civil rights and employment lawyer here in LA since 1985. Welcome, Jim DeSimone.
Thanks so much for having me on the show.
So just give us a little rundown of what you do, because, civil rights, we all cherish our civil rights, and but sometimes they're not honored. And that's when a guy like you steps in, I take it.
Well, that's right. As a civil rights lawyer, we protect individuals whose rights have been abused either by the government or by a large company, and we seek to vindicate those rights in court. And that can take a couple of different turns. For over 30 years, I've been representing individuals who have been victimized by police misconduct, police brutality, sometimes government overreach. And in addition to that, employment law, the right to be free from harassment or discrimination in employment. That's declared by our California legislature to be a civil right. It is one of our civil rights to have discrimination-free employment. So we represent individuals who have been harassed and discriminated against in employment as well.
So, Jim, and in light of the current protest and things of that nature, you're getting busy, aren't you?
I'm getting a lot of calls. The irony is that you had so many people take to the streets. I mean, literally tens of thousands, maybe even when you add them all up, hundreds of thousands here in Los Angeles. Most of them there to peaceably protest in support of Black Lives Matter and against the murder of individuals like George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. And what we found is that the LAPD made the same choices that they made in the past to meet even the peaceful protests with some very violent and brutal conduct that really ended up hurting people. And so when those people get hurt, lots of them find their way to calling me.
And can you tell us, give us an example of, how some of these officers may have overreached and hurt people?
Well, they really fall into two main categories. I mean, one, you have areas where people were peacefully protesting, putting their hands up, hands up, don't shoot is one cry, Black Lives Matter. And I've had individuals, several, who say they were even trying to let police officers know we're peaceful. We're not going to do anything. We're peaceful. And then get targeted by getting shot in the face with rubber bullets. I spoke with a young girl yesterday, 25 years old. Her nose is fractured. She's got to have, facial reconstruction. Spoke with another young man who got out of his car, had his hands up, and got shot in the eye. He has 2 broken bones under his eye. Another woman got shot at such close range with a rubber bullet that the rubber bullet's embedded into her stomach, and they don't want to take it out, so she's got to live the rest of her life maybe with this shrapnel, so to speak. And, the use of rubber bullets, shooting indiscriminately into a crowd, it's just excessive, and it shouldn't have been done. And there are literally, I'm afraid, perhaps hundreds of people who have been victimized by that.
What is the protocol for using rubber bullets?
Well, it should be when you identify a threat. If someone in a crowd is acting hostilely, let's say they're throwing bottles or that person is throwing rocks, and you have a visual on that person, I mean, they're trained to shoot those guns accurately. You could take a person like that out who is doing something like that. But I don't know why, because this has been adjudicated before, but for some reason, the LAPD, instead of honoring the right to peaceful protest, because remember, we as United States citizens have a First Amendment right, and all of our amendments are important, but a First Amendment right to peaceably assemble, to redress the government for our grievances, to speak for free speech. And police officers should be out there protecting those people to exercise their free speech instead of treating them as a hostile enemy. I mean, that being said, I'll tell you, the people who are taking advantage of this situation, the opportunists who are coming down in these nice cars and looting, I mean, arrest them, go after those guys, no one's saying that, anyone should be hurt or injured as a result of protest. I mean, there is, obviously, you need some police work here to protect us from those people. But the police should just not be targeting. They're targeting journalists in some instance.
We're Larry and Rob Mandel, the brothers-in-law, here on Go Country 105. Do you have a legal issue you need help with? We want to hear from you.
Find us on Instagram and send us a message. Then tune in on Saturdays at 8 a.m. right here on Go Country 105.
Do you need help feeding your family right now? We all know that schools are closed, and some kids rely on free or reduced price meals at school. Visit fns.usda.gov/meals for kids to find a grab-and-go meal center near you. They are offering 2 grab-and-go meals for kids. Again, please visit www.fns.usda.gov/meals for kids. 4 is the number 4. And let's make sure all the kids are fed.
So, Jim, I have a question on that, though, because that is the flip side of the coin is maybe these cops, and I'm just playing devil's advocate, are in a position where they can't tell from, who's the peaceful ones and who's not the peaceful ones. And maybe the people who are doing damage are interspersed with the peaceful ones. And that's how innocent people get targeted with these rubber bullets and whatnot. I mean, is that not a possible scenario?
I think that's what they'll say, but I don't think that's fair when you look at the situation. People who are in the middle of a street aren't looting a store.
Well, that's true.
I mean, they're just not. And, so to say that, those individuals, and that the solution then is just, well, let's just shoot into the crowd and whoever we hit and wherever we hit, we hit. You could kill someone. There was a young man up in San Jose who was trying to create peace with the officers. They shot him right in the testicles. I mean, he just got married, wants to have a family, and he's never able to have kids again. So I think that there's, I know that so often we want a professional police department that protects and serves us, and we want to give those officers the benefit of the doubt because, God knows it's a tough job, right? I mean, no one's underestimating how difficult it is for individuals to be a police officer and go out every day. And in some way, they do risk their lives. But that being said, they need to respect and protect the community. The way in which those protesters were treated by law enforcement, they were seen as the hostile enemy. Yeah. And I'll give you another example. Case we filed today. We had a press conference. We had all the news stations there. Laura Mantilla, Laura really captured the imagination of the nation when she put into, she was USC graduate, put in storyboard form what occurred to her. Now, she was out there peaceably protesting. She didn't want to get arrested. 5+ hours in painful handcuffs, causing nerve damage. Any move she makes is inflicting more pain on her. They put all these women in a darkened bus in a cage with nobody supervising. Women were having panic attacks. Women were urinating on themselves. Women were calling out and crying. And when that occurred, an officer came in and just blasted the music to drown out those cries. That's cruel. That is cruelty to another human being, and we're better than that. The irony is they're out there protesting police brutality, and they're met with brutal tactics for exercising a right that our founding fathers gave us in the Constitution.
Yeah.
So Jim,
that does bring up. Well, go ahead, Larry. I stepped on you. Go ahead.
All right. So, what are some of the? You talked about solutions. What are some of the solutions? And with that in mind, we talk about defunding. And what does that really mean?
Well, there's a defunding the police is not abolishing the police, and so
maybe it's a poor choice of words then, because automatically to most people it means, oh my God, we're going to take away all money from all police departments, and that's kind of a radical notion.
Yeah. We can't do that. I don't think no one's calling for that. I mean, it really is something where, look, I'm a homeowner. I want to feel secure in my house. If someone's coming in and breaking into my house and I call the police, but defunding the police is really, and I agree, there's probably a better way to put it. I mean, it really is, and it's not as maybe, it's harder to hashtag this, but it's redistributing some of the funds that are going to police agencies. And also, going to our mass incarceration system. I mean, I don't think you can do this just on a city of LA basis. I think it has to be done in a global approach, because how much are we spending on being the largest amount of people in the world. By far, take it to position, into account our population. We put more people in prison and jail than any country in the world. And the vast majority of those people that we put in are Black and brown individuals. They're just disproportionately represented in those jails. We gave up on rehabilitation in the 70s. I remember when I was in high school researching all these different ways that you could actually have a rehabilitation where people are then, there's a pathway for them to get reinvigorated into the community. We've given up on that. We write these people off. So if you took those funds and move them over to social services, to mental health, it would make the police officer's job easier. And then they could be what we really want them for, which is to protect us from the really bad people out there.
Yeah. And I think that is the crucial debate is, okay, maybe we need to rethink what we've done over the last 40, 50 years when we closed all the mental hospitals and we diverted funds that used to go to rehabilitation to just more police and even militarizing the police. And so the words defund the police really are a metaphor in a sense, or just a symbol of rethinking that whole movement and going back to perhaps spending money on prevention and spending money on putting into the communities so that crime is not as rampant.
Well, that's right. I mean, you have, say, people who are having a mental health crisis. And if the first person who shows up at the door are police officers who are, whatever day they've had, are not somebody necessarily who's going to want to talk somebody down. That doesn't mean, and instead you had people who are trained to handle someone who's having a mental health crisis. But look, if it goes into a situation where there's actually danger, then of course you want to have the option to call the police for backup.
Have you suffered or been injured by someone else's negligence? When you need a legal team that will stand up for what is right, won't give up the fight and obtain justice, call 818-886-6600. Mandel Trial Lawyers specializes in personal injury cases of all types. Whether it's a car accident, product or premises liability, dog bite, or a catastrophic injury, Mandel Trial Lawyers are there for you when the fight is worth it. Call now for your free consultation. 818-886-6600. Let the scales of justice tip in your favor.
Hey folks, do you want to volunteer to help out during the crisis? The Red Cross still needs volunteers in a variety of capacities during COVID-19. Volunteer opportunities include supporting blood donations and delivering much-needed services to your community. They even have a wide variety of remote work-from-home opportunities available. Go to redcross.org/volunteer to sign up. That's redcross.org/volunteer. Hey, if you missed any part of this show or you just want to hear it again, go to brothersonlaw.com for all of our previous shows and all things Brothers on Law.
I'll give you an example. I represented the family of Bartholomew Williams, who was a graduate student at Cal State San Bernardino. He was having a mental health crisis. He was decompensated. No, not threatening. 3, Cal State police show up at his campus housing. They say, we're going to take you to get help. And he's like, can I get my shoes? No, you can't get your shoes. We're going to handcuff you. And as soon as they started that, they say he stiffened. They start hitting him with batons. Mm-hmm. Well, by the end, he's trying to get away with them with one handcuff on, and he gets shot and killed in front of his dorm room. And dies. And so here you have a situation where he actually called his mom for help. He acknowledged he needed help. A young African-American man with a lot of promise. He just happened to have a mental illness and wasn't taking all of his medication, but he shouldn't have had to pay for that with his life. So if you had people who were showing up at his door who could speak with him and were trained to speak with him, you're going to have a lot better outcome. They say 1 in 4 individuals who are shot and killed by the police are mentally ill.
Wow. And Jim, there's a program in Eugene, Oregon called CAHOOTS, and it stands for Crisis Assistance Helping Out. CAHOOTS, that's funny because I there's a feed store where I bought, country items, horseshoes and stuff like that called Cahoots.
In cahoots.
In Cahoots.
Yeah.
And apparently that's been a successful program. Do you know about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been written about later. It really serves as a model for how things could be done in Los Angeles because the cost is not that expensive. And it actually frees up police officers from having to attend to these calls. And so it makes the jobs of police officers easy. I mean, a police officer isn't a marriage counselor. If people are having, you live in an apartment complex and you hear two people fighting and screaming at each other, what are you going to do? Somebody calls the cops. Well, okay, they're disturbing the peace, but do you really need a police response on that? Or do you, is it better to have somebody, show up who can help and say, well, this is one way to go. We're here to help you. And we'd rather not get the police involved. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to have to call the police on those calls.
And so when you defund the police or redistribute some monies that have been traditionally going, at least for the last few decades, to police, you're putting it into programs like that. And someone if they hear people going at it, they can call someone like that. Or the police can send someone like that.
Well, I think you'd have different call numbers, and and obviously you'd have to have a different training and dispatch. 911, maybe we have a different number for those calls. Maybe we still use the 911 system. But absolutely, you'd have the first line of defense would be individuals who are trained in order to provide assistance rather than provide an armed response.
So really, defunding is talking about maybe transferring some of these funds for more of a mental health or societal type of approach rather than just force.
That's absolutely the plan. I mean, you see the city of Los Angeles looking at this already. I mean, the people's budget was presented. City council is looking at it because they know, because what's the flip side, when we're dealing with money? I talked to you a little bit about the way we dealt with protesters in this particular situation. Well, over the years, the city of Los Angeles has paid millions and millions of dollars to protesters who have been abused, hundreds of millions of dollars in police misconduct cases. If I never have another police shooting case, I'm good. I've been representing all these protesters, but in the past 3 weeks, I'm also representing 2 families who lost loved ones at the hand. One who was shot up in Palmdale by LA County sheriffs, fleeing. Okay, you should not run from the police, we know, but gets out with his hands up. Police are upset. Eyewitnesses say they shot him with his hands up. Another situation where a man was walking on a bridge and they shot him with rubber bullets and he fell off the bridge. Maybe he wasn't complying with commands. We don't know yet, but to pay for it with your life, and then at the end of the day, it cost all of us as taxpayers dollars. So we shouldn't be afraid of these things. So I really think that we as a community need to be open to alternatives because we want better results. We don't want people to die. And we also want to live in a society where so many people aren't afraid of the police. And I think that when we look at Black Lives Matter, and it really is the perception and the reality of Black men and women in Los Angeles that they are treated, and throughout the country, that they are pulled over far more often. They are treated differently. And you look at all these different situations.
Or more likely to be harmed in the arrest process. 2.8
times more African-American men get shot by population than white men. And then you look at, as lawyers, we take a case-by-case basis, right? Each case is different. We can say George Floyd, 9 minutes on a neck. Okay, that is wrong. That is killing. And I believe that the shooting of Rayshard Brooks is equally wrong. But of course, it's a different situation where someone's running away, but with a taser in their hand, right? I think as a civil rights lawyer, I'd have to acknowledge, well, there's a little bit more of a gray area. And yet, if we took a step back from the Brooks situation, what was the rush? Why did they have kill him. He's running away.
They have his driver's license and his car.
Yeah.
Where's this
know
guy going to hide?
Right,
They
Jim?
know where he
Call
lives.
backup.
Same with Brendan Glenn. I represent the family of Brendan Glenn, who was shot and killed in Venice. The guy just sort of pushes himself up. The cop backs up 2 steps and just takes out his gun and shoots him in the back. That's why Chief Beck called for that officer to be prosecuted. But our district attorney didn't. That's why many of us support George Gascon for district attorney. We have an important election coming up in November for district attorney. We won't talk about the presidential election.
We're Larry and Rob Mandel, the brothers-in-law, here on Go Country 105. Do you have a legal issue you need help with? We want to hear from you.
Find us on Instagram and send us a message. Then tune in on Saturdays at 8 a.m. right here on Go Country 105.
From all of us on the Brothers-in-Law Show, we want to give a big thank you to these sponsors who we've partnered with to help honor our local heroes and groups for going above and beyond for their community. We'd like to thank Ralph's, Whole Foods, Target, and Chipotle. Thank you for all you do in our community.
But I mean, the other side of the coin is, Jim, and I hate to interrupt, but
Go ahead.
is,
Your show.
I mean, and there is personal responsibility, right? I mean, if you're having interaction with police and you start to resist arrest or fleeing or doing something stupid, I mean, the chances are you're going to get hurt. And now I understand, okay, you shouldn't die, or they shouldn't hurt you more than they need to get you under control. But there is that, and I think it rubs a lot of people the wrong way. That people who are resisting arrest are the very ones who are complaining that they got hurt, or their families are complaining that they got hurt. I mean, so what do you say?
Now they're suing, and now they're suing for money.
Right.
Well, you have to look at what the underlying motivation of that resistance and what was happening. I mean, we don't see much of a resistance and arrest for George Floyd, for instance. The Brooks situation is totally different. But you're absolutely right. What do I advise people to do when they come into contact with a police officer? Be polite, answer their questions, show your hands. Don't make their job any tougher than it has to be. We might have the right to, curse at a police officer, right? I mean, theoretically, under the Constitution, we can. But why?
But don't do it.
Why would you? Exactly. I mean, I understand that, and yes, there's personal responsibility. On the other hand, when you're dealing with issues like mental illness, there's, an understanding that individuals don't always make rational decisions. So the police are the ones with the jobs to protect us. And in order to make us all safer, we want a professional police force that's not going to overstep their bounds, so we all can have confidence in our police.
Well stated.
Yeah. It's a tough
I think
because when you're under that kind of pressure, you can snap, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, which means more training, don't you think?
Right.
More professional training
or screening of the personality types, because if you got a hothead, there's, I don't know if you can train the hot-headedness out of someone,
Right. Well, and that's the thing. You should really be looking into the background, psychological background. And I'm going to be honest with you. I think we should be looking at people. If you're a white supremacist and you identify as a white supremacist, you shouldn't be a police officer who is there to help all of our communities. Right. And you have strains of white supremacists in police forces. I mean, you know how it goes. How many times do we go into court and have a judge treat us? I mean, it happens rudely, belittling.
Yeah.
What do we have to do? We have to figure out, how do we navigate this situation, even though we'd like to say, you know what, Your Honor?
Yeah. Fly a kite, buddy.
we have to be professional because our client's interest at stake. So in the same way, when the police confront individuals who are not cooperative, if their response is one of a hothead and somebody who's just going to get revenge because someone else has mistreated them, they need to have more restraint as a police officer. They should not be police officers. They
right on.
Temperament.
Yeah, you know what? We have to wrap it up.
Yeah, hate to say it because we could do this all day.
Yeah, it's incredible, and shedding some light on these complicated issues. How can our listeners get a hold of you, Jim?
Well, the best way, my email, vjdesimone@gmail.com. But my phone number, 310-693-5685. 5561. And if you want to read about the groundbreaking work we've done, vjamesdesimonelaw.com. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've had some great precedent-setting cases, and I'm still passionate about helping people. And that's really the bottom line. I've got a great team, and we're there to, when people call, to do our best. If we can help them, you're going to have somebody in your corner.
Thank you, Jim.
Larry and Rob, I really appreciate being on the show. Thank you. That was fun.
You got it. And, if you've missed any part of this show or you'd like to hear us on previous shows, go to YouTube, brothersonlaw.com, or you can listen to us on iTunes and Podbean. And if you have a legal question or a show topic, call us and leave a message at 1-800-310-7113. That's 1-800-310-7113. And a big thank you to all our listeners. And please stay safe out there. We look forward to being here next week on Saturday at 8 a.m. on Go Country 105. And remember, let the scales of justice tip in your favor.
The opinions expressed in the Brothers on Law show are for informational purposes only and are not a substitute for personal professional legal advice.